Imagine, like a biological machine that can run 100 miles a day in sub-zero temperatures, pulling a sled and doing it all on just a fraction of the caloric fuel you'd expect.
Right. It sounds totally made up.
Yeah, exactly. You aren't looking at some conceptual sci-fi engine or something. You're looking at the Siberian Husky. It's just an absolute marvel of evolution.
Yeah.
But, what happens when you take that ultimate survival machine built for the frozen tundra and you put it in a heated suburban living room?
Well, you get a massive biological mismatch. I mean, you have this animal wired for extreme endurance and deprivation.
Right.
And suddenly they're placed in an environment of just total comfort and excess.
Right.
And navigating that gap between what they were built for and how they actually live today, that's really the central challenge for anyone who brings one into their home.
Which is the core focus of today's deep dive for you guys listening. We're digging into an incredibly comprehensive stack of source material today, specifically the clinical notes, transcripts, and research from the VitalPet Dog Health Academy.
Yeah, and it's focusing entirely on Siberian Husky health, which is fascinating.
It really is. And the mission here isn't just to, give you a list of basic dog care tips you already know. We're trying to distill the ultimate lifelong checklist of what actually moves the needle for this specific, highly engineered breed.
Because the central theme running through all these clinical transcripts is that dramatic, singular interventions almost never extend a dog's life. I mean, biological reality just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, unfortunately not.
Right. What actually shapes a husky's lifespan, and more importantly, their health span, the years they spend actually feeling good, are the daily, completely unglamorous habits built over a decade or more.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because looking at the transcripts, building that health span actually starts before the dog even exists.
He does, yeah.
The foundational habit is what they call a before day one decision.
Wow.
It's demanding responsible breeding awareness.
Exactly, because as brilliant as their evolutionary design is, the modern husky gene pool has some very specific vulnerabilities. And the big ones noted by the Academy are joint dysplasia and these severe hereditary eye conditions. Specifically, juvenile cataracts and progressive retinal atrophy, or PRA.
Progressive retinal atrophy. I mean, that is one of those terms that sounds absolutely terrifying, but I think a lot of people don't actually know what is happening inside the dog's eye.
Yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like, unfortunately. The photoreceptor cells in the back of the eye, so the rods and cones that process light, they literally waste away over time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The mechanism is genetic and it's progressive. But the tricky part, the reason it's so dangerous, is that it usually starts with night blindness.
Which, I mean, a human would notice immediately, right? Like, if I can't see walking to the bathroom at night, I panic.
For sure. But a dog relies so heavily on their olfactory system, their sense of smell, that they just seamlessly compensate.
They just adapt.
They map out your living room with their nose and their memories, so to the owner, the dog seems perfectly fine.
Right, because they aren't bumping into things.
Exactly. By the time an owner actually notices the dog bumping into the coffee table during the day, the retinal atrophy is already in a severely advanced stage. And you cannot reverse it once those cells are gone.
Man, so the habit here isn't treating the disease. It's the upfront demand for genetic screening from the breeder before you ever bring a puppy home.
Precisely.
It's a bit like buying a house, I guess.
Yeah.
You want to see the inspection report before you move in. You're basically asking to see the genetic blueprint to ensure those specific markers for PRA and joint issues aren't just lurking in the code.
Right, and it doesn't guarantee the dog will never get sick. Biology is just too chaotic for that. But you are shifting the baseline odds heavily in your favor.
You're setting a proactive foundation. But once you move in, you still have to do the daily upkeep, right? Once that dog is in your house, that biological machine requires constant maintenance. So looking at the clinical data, what is the most impactful daily upkeep for a husky's longevity?
It really comes down to managing their wildly efficient metabolism. It's all about preventative care and healthy body condition.
And I was absolutely fascinated by the mechanics of this in the source material. We always hear, huskies have fast metabolisms, but it's actually kind of the opposite of how we think about it.
Yeah, totally. It's not that they burn through food quickly like a hummingbird or something. It's that their bodies are incredibly stingy with calories.
Right.
They're basically metabolic magicians. I mean, if a normal dog, or a human for that matter, is running a long distance, they're going to quickly deplete the glycogen stored in their muscles.
And once the glycogen is gone, you hit a wall, you just physically crash.
Exactly. But scientists studying sled dogs have found that huskies can seemingly alter their metabolisms to pull energy directly from fat sources.
Wait, Really?
Yeah, they do it without entirely depleting those glycogen stores.
Oh,
They can run for hours, sleep in the snow, wake up, and do it again without that debilitating fatigue.
which is an incredible evolutionary trick if you're pulling medicine to Nome, Alaska. But if your husky is just hanging out in a modern climate-controlled house, that hyper-efficient fat-storing metabolism is basically a ticking time bomb for obesity, isn't it?
Oh, it's the ultimate trap for a modern owner. Because their metabolism is so efficient, they need significantly fewer calories per pound than, like, many other breeds of the exact same size.
Wow, okay.
If you feed a husky the way you feed a golden retriever, the husky's body will take all those extra calories and immediately pack them away as fat, because its DNA is constantly preparing for a famine that just never comes.
And the weight creeps up silently. But the transcripts emphasize that this isn't just a cosmetic issue, right? It ties directly back to those genetic joint vulnerabilities we just talked about.
Yeah, it creates a devastating compounding effect. So if your husky has even a mild subclinical genetic predisposition to hip dysplasia.
Meaning, like, the hip joint doesn't fit perfectly into the socket, but it's not bad enough to cause a limp yet.
Right, exactly. If you add just 5 pounds of fat to that, it changes the physics of their movement entirely. You are forcing a compromised mechanical joint to carry a heavier load, which grinds the cartilage down way faster.
Yikes.
So what might have been, a minor arthritis issue at age 10 becomes a crippling mobility issue at age 6 simply because of mechanical overload.
So the lifelong habit isn't just mindlessly scooping kibble into a bowl. The habit is hands-on, physical assessment of their body condition.
Exactly.
Because of that dense fur, you can't just look at a husky and know if they're overweight.
Yeah.
Your hands actually have to physically feel their ribs.
You have to press gently through the coat.
Right, you need to feel a distinct waistline. And nutrition isn't static, right? Because their metabolism shifts as they move from, say, an active adult to a naturally slowing senior.
Yeah.
You're constantly recalibrating their caloric intake based on that tactile feedback.
Yeah, you periodically revisit that with your vet as life stages shift. You can't assume a single feeding approach works forever, which leads directly into how they're expending those calories. You cannot manage a working breed's body condition without addressing their massive need for output. They need physical exercise, obviously, but the VitalPet Academy notes highlight a massive blind spot for most owners.
With that,
Treating a husky's need for mental stimulation as optional, it's a huge mistake.
okay, I actually want to push back on this a little bit, or at least play devil's advocate for the busy owner listening right now.
Sure, go for it.
Let's say I am incredibly disciplined. I take my husky on a brisk 3-mile walk around my suburban subdivision every single morning down the exact same streets. I am burning their calories. I'm checking the exercise box. Are they essentially being bored to tears? Why is the source material suggesting this isn't enough?
What's fascinating here is that, yes, you are checking the physical box, but you're leaving the neurological box completely empty.
Oh, okay.
A husky on a repetitive, predictable 3-mile walk is essentially a supercomputer being used as a paperweight. I mean, they have memorized every blade of grass, every fire hydrant, every neighbor's fence on that route.
I really are bored to tears.
Profoundly bored. You have to remember, they were bred for problem solving in dynamic, dangerous environments. They had to navigate shifting ice, find trails and whiteouts, make split-second decisions.
So when you deprive a working dog of cognitive challenges,
That pent-up mental energy inevitably mutates into anxiety or destructive behavior. They will literally redesign your drywall if you don't give them a brain job.
so how do we actually satisfy that cognitive drive in a modern setting? It's not like we can simulate a blizzard in the backyard, you know?
No, but it is all about introducing novelty and forcing them to use their senses, particularly their olfactory system. Variety matters infinitely more than just physical exhaustion.
Okay, so mix it up.
Right. Instead of the same 3-mile walk, you take them to an entirely new hiking trail where the smells and terrain are totally unfamiliar. You introduce scent work.
Like hiding their meals in puzzle toys.
Yeah, or scattering it in the grass so they have to hunt for it. You're forcing their brain to process new data, which tires them out far more thoroughly than just a mindless jog on a paved sidewalk.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. How do we adapt this when the dog starts aging? Because obviously, a 10-year-old senior husky simply cannot maintain the physical output they had at 3 years old.
Right.
But you're saying that mental drive doesn't just evaporate.
The drive absolutely remains, even as the chassis starts to wear down. And the biggest mistake an owner can make with a senior working breed is looking at their stiff joints and deciding to just stop everything.
So you don't eliminate the engagement.
Exactly. You adapt the intensity. You tailor the activity to what the dog can handle right now.
You preserve the joints while keeping the mind sharp.
Precisely. You drop the high-impact running, but you increase the low-impact scent games. You take shorter walks, but you let them stop and sniff every single tree for as long as they want.
Because that sniffing is intensive cognitive processing.
Yes. You're constantly adjusting the dials so their brain stays engaged without breaking their body.
That makes total sense. And this brings up a really fascinating dynamic about the breed's psychology that we saw in the notes. So we have this highly active, incredibly intelligent working breed built to push through tough conditions. Because of that, they've developed extreme stoicism.
Oh, absolutely.
I'd imagine that hiding pain is a massive evolutionary advantage for a pack animal in a harsh environment. Like if you show weakness out on the ice, you become a liability to the team or you become prey.
It's a deep-seated survival mechanism. A Siberian Husky is not going to whine and point at a developing health issue. Their default setting is to mask vulnerability.
They won't tell you they're hurting.
Right. The clinical transcripts are very clear on this. A Husky's outward appearance will often completely hide what is actively failing internally.
Which means owners can't just wait for them to tell us something is wrong. We have to bypass that stoicism. We basically have to be a little bit stealthy about how we examine them.
Yes. You have to use stealthy ways to check their physical health.
And one of the most brilliant mechanisms for this in the source material is leveraging something you are forced to do anyway, which is managing their coat.
Ah, yes, the infamous Husky blow coat, where they shed their entire undercoat and it looks like a snowstorm in your hallway.
Exactly. But the transcripts emphasize that brushing shouldn't be viewed as just occasional, cosmetic grooming. It is routine maintenance. It forces you to have regular hands-on contact.
It really is like reading Braille.
So basically, brushing and grooming is a Trojan horse for a physical exam. You're making them look good, but you're secretly checking under the hood.
I love that framing. It really is a Trojan horse, because you can't just glance at a Husky and see if they're losing muscle mass or developing a tumor under that dense double coat.
Right. Your hands literally have to learn the baseline topography of your dog's body.
When you are thoroughly brushing them, working through the guard hairs down to the undercoat, you are forced into prolonged, systematic physical contact with every inch of their body.
So you learn what's normal.
Exactly. Your hands learn what their normal muscle tone feels like. You learn the normal temperature of their skin. So when a subtle change happens, like a new lump, a patch of heat radiating from a joint or an area where they flinch when the brush passes over it, you notice it months before it becomes a visible limp or a massive tumor.
You catch subtle skin changes early on. And we see this exact same principle of invisible threats when the source material talks about dental health.
Oh, dental health is arguably the most neglected area of canine care, entirely because the threat is invisible until it is catastrophic.
We tend to think of dog breath as just a gross annoyance, right?
Okay.
But the biological mechanism of what is actually happening under the gum line is terrifying.
It's a massive systemic threat. What starts as plaque hardens into tartar, but the real danger is the bacteria that gets trapped beneath the gum line in areas you cannot see.
Right.
This bacteria triggers a constant low-grade immune response. The dog's body is fighting a localized infection 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And over time, that chronic inflammation literally dissolves the bone anchoring the teeth.
And because the Husky is so incredibly stoic, they will just keep crunching their kibble even as their jawbone is deteriorating.
They will not stop eating until the pain is absolutely agonizing. But worse than the localized pain, that bacteria doesn't just stay in the mouth. It enters the bloodstream through the inflamed gums and travels to the major organs, constantly taxing the heart, the liver, and the kidneys.
Wow. So consistency with at-home care matters way more than occasional intense interventions. Doing a deep clean at the vet every 5 years when their teeth are rotting out is entirely the wrong approach.
Completely wrong.
The habit has to be mechanical disruption. Actually brushing the dog's teeth at home to break up that bacterial biofilm before it hardens, right? Stopping the cascade before the immune system ever has to get involved.
You're preventing the systemic tax on their organs, exactly. But even with the most meticulous at-home care, the physical body checks, the brushing, the dental care, there is a hard limit to what a human without a medical degree can detect.
That's so true. I mean, I can learn the topography of my dog's ribs, but I cannot see their kidney function. I can't look into their eyes and spot the start of progressive retinal atrophy.
No, you can't.
If their instinct is to hide their decline, and the decline itself happens at a microscopic level, We need a way to track the hard data over time.
Which brings us to the absolute necessity of the veterinary partnership. Routine vet exams, vaccines, and parasite prevention are non-negotiable.
Right.
Because the breed is stoic, routine blood panels and eye exams are the only mechanisms capable of catching changes an owner simply cannot see. A senior dog might not show you they're in renal failure, but their elevated kidney enzymes on a blood test cannot lie.
But the transcripts point out a fascinating psychological hurdle for owners when it comes to spotting this gradual decline, especially in seniors. How do we spot aging if the dog hides it, and we see them every single day?
It's the boiling frog phenomenon. Gradual change is almost impossible to perceive in real time. If your dog loses 1% of their mobility every week, you simply will not notice it day to day. Yeah, a single slow morning just means they slept funny. A skipped meal just means they are hungry today.
Exactly. So the golden rule of geriatric care is this. You must constantly compare your dog's current behavior to how they were several months ago, not how they were yesterday.
So, look back 6 months. That forces you to look at the macro trend.
Right. If you look back to last spring and realize they used to greet you at the door with a toy, and now they just lift their head from the bed, that is a massive behavioral delta. It means something structural or metabolic has shifted.
But relying on human memory for that is a disaster. I can barely remember what my dog's exact weight was 2 years ago. The source material talks about how to stay organized, highlighting this highly undervalued habit, maintaining complete medical records.
It is the most powerful tool an owner has. A single data point 1 blood test, one way in, tells you almost nothing in isolation.
It's just a snapshot.
Exactly. But a multi-year record of their weight, their vaccine history, the results of their annual blood panels, and your notes on their behavior, that turns a vague feeling of, he seems a little off lately, into a highly actionable, here is exactly what has changed since last spring.
I do want to ask about this, though. It sounds like you're telling me I need to be my dog's personal data archivist. But isn't analyzing that data exactly what the vet gets paid to do? Why is the burden of context on me?
That's a great question. The vet has the medical expertise to analyze the data, for sure, but you are the only one who can collect the daily environmental context.
Ah, so the vet can tell me the liver enzymes are elevated, but they don't know that the dog stopped wanting to jump into the back of the SUV 3 months ago.
Right. The veterinarian only sees your dog for roughly an hour out of an 8,760-hour year. The vet cannot effectively diagnose a stoic, complicated working breed without the contextual history you provide.
And the owner can't catch invisible diseases without the vet's tools.
Exactly. It's an interdependent relationship. The single most important idea of the entire deep dive is building that lifelong partnership with a trusted veterinarian.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? If we pull all these clinical threads together, a healthy husky isn't about learning a brand new approach every year, is it?
Not at all. It's remarkably simple, really. You're taking the exact same core habits: caloric management, varied mental and physical exercise, routine grooming, dental care, and vet visits. And you're just constantly adjusting the dials on those habits to match whatever life stage the dog is currently in.
And doing it all while working with the breed. You have an animal shaped by centuries of purposeful work, endurance, independence, and a high prey drive.
Yeah, the healthiest version of this dog emerges when you work with those evolutionary traits, satisfying their drive rather than fighting against it or underestimating their need for containment and safety.
You really have to learn how to partner with its engineering.
You absolutely do.
And as we wrap up this deep dive into the Vital Pet Dog Health Academy sources, I want to leave you with a final kind of unmentioned concept to ponder. We just spent this entire deep dive discussing how incredibly vital it is to track long-term baseline data for our dogs, right?
Oh, for sure.
We talked about how bypassing their stoicism requires comparing their behavior and blood work to months ago rather than yesterday. Tracking that longitudinal data is the absolute secret to catching subtle aging early and extending a dog's life.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Why is it that we are so willing to become meticulous, dedicated data archivists for our pets, but we humans so rarely apply that same rigorous standard of longitudinal tracking to our own subtle aging processes?
Wow. Yeah, it's a profound contradiction, really. We optimize their health span, but we often leave our own totally up to chance.
Something to think about the next time you're meticulously updating your dog's medical file while ignoring your own stiff knee. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep an eye on those unglamorous daily habits, and keep digging deeper.